Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Deputy Pay Rates and Awards training session. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Felix, and I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Deputy, and I'm also joined by my colleague Sam today. Cool. We're going to deep dive into the pay rates and awards within your Deputy account today. Specifically, we're going to cover all things pay rates, including hourly rates, salaries, and area-based pay. How to use our awards library, the interpretation of our awards. We also show you how to troubleshoot timesheets with wrong pay rates. And then we're going to share some general time-saving tips and tricks already through the whole presentation. Perfect. We want the session to be interactive, so please ask your questions using the Q&A panel at the bottom of the Zoom window shown on the right side of the slide. We won't be able to respond to questions in the general chat. I see that already a few people wrote something in the chat. Please use the Q&A section for that because we can't cover the chat. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can during the session, and we'll provide a follow-up FAQ afterwards alongside with a recording of today's session. At the end of our time today, we'll run a quick poll within this Zoom meeting and ask for your feedback for today's session. And with that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Sam to begin today's training. Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome back. It's really glad to do a session like this. Today's topic is actually quite big and there's a lot to cover. So we're going to assume that everyone is quite well introduced to Deputy, and we're going to jump straight into the pay rates and the awards. So I'm going to jump out of this slide and we're going to go right into the account. So again, what we're going to start with today is the people section of the account, and then we're going to spend the rest of it in the timesheet section, in the both approval and a little bit in the export, and then we'll get to the Q&A and we'll kind of bring it all together. So firstly, with the people tab, the best thing to do to start with is, rather than show how to edit people one by one, I might just show you some of the kind of the more front-facing and interface features here. So firstly, you can edit people's pay rates by person, as you can see here, but you can also do bulk actions as well. So by selecting either multiple people or by using this top box over here, you'll always be able to mass edit lots of employees at the same time if you would like to set a pay rate for all of your people at once. Now, please note, when you're doing the bulk actions for this mass edit of employee pay rates, you want to go to bulk actions, and it's going to limit you to what you can see. And Deputy is limited to 50 at a time. So if you have 100, you'll need to do this bulk actions twice, because it will tell you that it's selected 50 of 100. And then you just basically use the directional button there to then switch over to the next 50, for example. So what we can do is we can hit set rates and bulk actions, and it's going to bring the list of pay rates that we can interact with. So by selecting the drop-down menu, we're going to start with the basics today, which is the hourly rates. So I'll do it person by person for this example here. And what you'll see here is when you edit an employee's profile, everything to do with pay is going to be in the employment details, and we've got hourly set here. So with hourly, it breaks it into a few main structures here. The first one is just the weekday, like your Monday to Friday rate, and then you've got a Saturday rate and a Sunday rate, and then lastly you have a public holiday rate. So if we just pop in something like 25, 30, 35, oh, that's 25 again, and then 40, then we've set an hourly rate for all of the different working conditions that can be had on a schedule. So for example, if it's Monday to Friday, it'll index it the hours by this $25 rate here. Saturdays will invoke a 30, Sunday a 35, and a public holiday, which you select by clicking on the day in the schedule and hitting the tick box for public holiday, will put that $40 rate in there. Lastly is the export code and the leave entitlements. And then when we go ahead and hit save, we've saved this particular pay rate as an hourly for Amy here. So if we go back to edit again, and we'll go back to the employment details, what we'll see is we've got hourly, but then we've got area of work as well. So what we can do is not only have an hourly base rate for those days, you can set the area of work for the hourly. So you've got a default hourly like we just did before, like in Monday to Friday. And then we can actually select from the dropdown all of the areas that we've set up in this account already. So we can say that Amy here, their default rate for any working area is $25. But if they work as management in the management area, we might bump her pay up to 35. And that's basically how area-based pay works for hourly rates. And that means that if we schedule Amy in for management and then approve a timesheet that has flagged management as the area, it's not going to charge 25. It's going to pay at a $35 rate. And that's basically area-based pay in a nutshell for the hourly rates. But please note that area-based pay like this, or area of work pay, is only works for just basic hourly rates just yet. So another way that we can rationalize pay as well is, instead of an hourly rate, it also puts in like it has an hourly rate, but on top of that, it has an overtime calculator as well. So based on the ordinary hours here, which we have here is 40 hours. So if Amy here works at 40 hours, and then the 41st hour will be charged at a 1.5 times multiplier. So a timesheet will show a new pay line that is at $37.50 if the base hourly is 25. So it's important to note that the overtime calculator is not a dollar value. It's a multiplier of the ordinary rate. So that's really good to see there. And then another structure of pay that you can have that it's quite common is salary workers. Now, salary workers is a little different than hourly, because what you need to do is you basically need to rationalize the salary pay, whether it's annual or weekly, put the value in, and then elect the days of work that they pay. Now, what this does is this helps basically work back the calculation as to how the annualized or weekly salary is broken up in the week. So at the moment, you need to allocate this particular person, Amy's salary, to typically a 5-day working week out of the 7. So let's just say it's the typical Monday to Friday, for example. We'll see that as we interact with those buttons, it's trying to divide the annualized salary into the days of the week. So it actually quite helps with allocating salary to budgets and things like that, and reporting as well. And then another thing that you can do is you can select the areas that it's elected for as well. And you can do multiple areas. So this means that the salary that you're allocating to this person is calculating the right figures when it comes to reporting and the schedule quick tips of like budgeting breakdowns and stuff like that. Okay, so another important thing when it comes to figuring out the libraries of awards and pay rates that you have available here is that what we've just covered so far are all of the kind of basic like kind of customized working situations when it comes to putting in how pay is really rationalized. But all the other ones that we have is this quite immense list here of awards. And so these awards is basically, we call it the Deputy Awards Library. And it's quite a big library. It has everything from GRIA to RIA to SHADS to ACA to heaps of different acronyms that kind of service a whole bunch of different industries, from securities to hospitality to healthcare. There's a lot that it covers. But what you'll also notice is, as you look through the award acronym or code that's relevant to you, you'll actually see a lot of dates and years and things like that that are backdated on there. And the reason why you might see, let's say, 10 GRIAs is because it tries to break it up into the working orientation, a part-timer, a casual, and a full-timer. And it also backdates it. So if anyone in payroll has to query a timesheet from, let's say, 2 years ago, they can. They can change the pay rate for that person back to a previous version, and then reapprove a timesheet of that date and be able to calculate exactly what it was supposed to be at the time. Makes it very easy to audit, basically. So for this scenario, what I might do is I might just start with basic RIA. But I think that for all of our customers, if you're going to be using an award from the awards library, it's really good to not only see it in the front interface. So let's say we select casual and the state stamp here. But what we also provide is on our deputy support pages is a kind of a more easy to read and a bit more of an official document on not only how all of these multipliers have been updated as per Fair Work, but also all of the allowances that are kind of features of the award itself, whether they are automated or not automated in this case. So what I might do is, before I kind of show you how all of these are really rationalized, I might show you what it looks like to find an award on our support page. So for example, I've got a little, I think I prepared earlier here. So this is just the support hub that we have. And I would just simply type in GRIA or something like that. In this case, GRIA, and it will find a support page. And what this does is this basically breaks down how our team in our engineering team and stuff like that really build these awards to accurately reflect pay as much as possible. So in this case, we've kind of done a little breakdown of how we figured it out and how we're kind of keeping up with Fair Work. And then when we scroll down, it actually breaks down every single pay condition. So pay condition and employment terms is something that I'll visit in a second with you guys. But what we see here is these are all of the different kind of things that can determine a pay. As I mentioned, the default will always be an hourly rate or a ordinary rate. But as you can see here, there's a ton here that that does change someone's pay, whether it's a particular overtime, and a daily overtime can be broken up into typically two ways. A daily overtime can be the first 2 hours, which is of a certain rate. Let's say it's 1.5, and then you have after 2 hours, which is like 1.75. So to have deputy approve a timesheet and know, based on the time and attendance parameters that have been approved in the timesheet, that this particular pay rate needs to be invoked instead of this other one, it's a pretty tricky thing. So that's why when you're approving timesheets, it can take a minute if you're using a complicated award with a very big list of timesheets. And so this is why it's really good to have on hand the award that you're using in the Deputy Awards Library. Have a copy of the support link saved, so you've got something a bit easier to read to consult, because this basically puts everything in there. So for example, we've already put a note here that shows the 25% casual loading has not been included. So that means for Amy here, if they're getting paid 25, I also need to think about the 25% loading rate and add that onto this amount as well. So let's go back to general retail. So as you can see, we've split it up between full-time, part-timer, and casual. And these are all of the multipliers. So for example, that Sunday 12 a.m. to 9 a.m., that's a double multiplier. But that multiplier is based on the ordinary rate. That's always kind of the rock, the boiled down point of reference that all of these multipliers rely on, all these overtime calculators. So it's always good to make sure that, that your casual loading rate and stuff like that is already put in there. But again, if I just scroll down, there's another concept to understand here, which is not only the overtime calculator, but it's also the allowances as well. So if I scroll down, as you can see, we've accounted for a lot here, but there's a lot to account for. We'll see that we eventually get to allowances. I'm just going to speed that up. Cool. So here are the allowances that are not automated. So this is to advise that if you're getting to a timesheet and you're starting to troubleshoot it and thinking, oh, like this timesheet definitely had this working situation in it, in that there was, I need to apply a meal allowance, then it's good to know what allowances are not automated. Now, a little later on, I'll show you what it means to actually add an allowance to a timesheet, especially if it's not automated. So what I'll do is I'll jump back. And the reason why I wanted to show you the support links is, again, they're a lot easier to read than the list that we provide here. So what this does is, this is just the free text field, well, not free text, but a numeric text field that allows you to put in the rate. So let's say it's 25. And you'll see that based on all of the multipliers that we have quoted here, it's automatically giving you a heads up on what those rates are going to be. So if we see here, if any of these look out of ordinary, if they are different to how you interpret it, then just simply get in touch with our support team. But again, a really good way to know what Deputy's kind of interpretation of the award is to not only look through the list here, but it's also to refer to the article as well. If we scroll down, we've also got all of the allowances too. It puts in the values that are like kind of the bare minimum, so to speak. And then it has because these on the left-hand side are unit values, and then on the right, it's the rate of dollars. So that means that if we find that meal allowance one, it's 1887. So that means if we put a 1 in the timesheet, it'll pop in $1887. And then also, it's just really good to kind of have a read through this stuff for the first person and then kind of save it and then move on to the next person. But at least you've got a good idea of where you're at. So let's just hit save for this person. And it's really good to get an understanding of not only, specifically GRIA, as to kind of all of the industries that are being serviced here. So if we go to myself, for example, and hit edit, we'll pop into employment details, and you can see that I've elected SHADS in this one. And as per healthcare awards, it can be a little bit more complicated in a lot of ways. So for example, if we scroll down here, an important one would be, let's say it's the overnight, the sleepover allowance. That's an allowance that's not automated. So that means that once we put the values in that reflect how a business interprets it, when we get to the timesheet section, we'll be able to accurately just pop in units rather than edit the values as well. So it makes it a bit easier to make sure that you're all across this. Okay, great. And just so you know, again, just like the support article itself, it's quite big, but so's the award library. So rather than scrolling all the way down it, try and remember at least the acronym. But what I do is I actually just Google for Fair Work the kind of description. So for example, aged care or something like that, or aged care award. And it will give me the code for it. Because if you type in the actual code, so for example, if I type in MA, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then what, 8? I think I've done too many zeros. There we go. Then I get the ACA. So Fair Work's always a really, really good source of truth to help you figure out where you need to find this stuff. But as you can see, even though I've been very specific with the award that I wanted to have a look at, there's a ton of different versions. So you've got like apprenticeship versions, casuals, you've got your full-timers, and then you've also obviously got your dates as well to be as the most current, and then you've got the previous versions of it as well. So yeah, I think this is really, really good to have a look at. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spend a little bit of time in the timesheet approval section. And what this is going to allow us to do is work through a few bit more hypotheticals of what it's like to, let's say we need to go back and check some stuff in the people tab and resave some things. But the timesheet approval process is usually where you find the timesheets that you need to work on. So what I'll do is I'll just jump into this timesheet that I've prepared earlier for myself. And what we'll have a look at is we'll see here at the bottom, we have 2 non-automated allowances that wouldn't have automatically shown up should I have just approved the timesheet for its hours. So it's really good to get a handle of how to add and manage the allowances that are not automated in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to unapprove the time. And we'll see here, this is like an 11 p.m. to a 7 a.m. shift. So that's definitely a sleepover shift. But if I simply approve the timesheet, it actually hasn't noted down. It's just put in my ordinary rate. Well, pardon me. It's actually quoted the SHADS casual, and then it's a night shift. So the automation has kicked in here where it's known the hours of the shift and popped in a night shift. So that means the rate of pay is going to be a little higher than the ordinary rate. However, I need to add allowances. So now that I've approved the time, I need to unapprove the pay manually. And then you'll see at the bottom here, you've got your shift loadings. So from the drop-down menu there, it's giving me all the allowances that we can pick from. So if I just hit this sleepover allowance here, actually, if I hit this one here, and then I can put in 2 unit and then approve pay, it's popped in 2 units of the sleepover allowance there. Awesome. But if I just unapprove the pay, there's also the ability for me to hit this plus symbol here, and then I can have a look and pop in a, there's a travel allowance that we can use as well, should I be traveling quite a long distance. And the travel allowance is looking to kind of rationalize kilometers versus a rate of kind of like fuel consumption and things like that to reimburse the employee like kind of on the timesheet and itemize it here, as opposed to trying to manage it in the payroll platform. Another one that people can use as well is if you hit the plus symbol on the base rates, from this drop-down menu, you can add overtimes that you wanted to manually add as well that are different to how the business interprets it. Because again, no matter how specifically any of the employment terms that we build in, the awards that we build into Deputy are, businesses always have kind of leeway with certain pay conditions that allow them to, add a night shift when it's not applicable, or a public holiday, or any of these kinds of other working situations that you get a bit more control. So we want to kind of give employees that control. So for example, if you wanted to add that, you could pop it in there and then it will recalculate and say that you're in a surplus of hours, for example. So let's pop that out and let's use a uniform allowance and pop in another 3. And as you can see, it's itemizing it. As we approve it, it's recalculating it. Now, a really good thing to have a look at is as you're approving timesheets, you might come across a situation where this version of the award is the old one and you want to actually do the new one. And the very, very quick way to do it is to actually just click on the employee on the left-hand side. It's got to bring up my profile here. I can hit edit. I can go the employment details. And then from here, we can have a look at MA 0000100, and it will show me all the SHADs. And we can select just this one here, the full-time disability services. We re-put in the values. We hit save. Now, a really, really good thing, something that we pretty much bring up every training session that we do, is that you'll notice that whenever you've made a change to the employee profile, an already approved timesheet won't recalculate it. You need to kind of manually unapprove and reapprove your timesheets because it's got to recalculate for you. So let's unapprove the time and reapprove it. And as you can see, that full-time disability version of SHADS is been recalculated. It doesn't do it automatically because approved timesheets lock that timesheet in place at that time. So it doesn't matter what you change to in the schedule or the people, it's already locked in. So you just need to unapprove and reapprove it. Now, what we can do up here is if we find that we need to update everyone's timesheets, and we've already done that in the people tab, we can unapprove all the timesheets using the drop-down menu at the top right, and then reapprove them. And as you can see, it's already reapproved everyone, which is awesome. And any changes that we'd made in between that will be recalculated. And that's really the biggest time saver, because doing it one by one is good if you are kind of exercising a bit of an audit or something like that, or you're just trying to check and make sure everyone's up to date. But the unapprove and then approve all, it's going to be a big time saver if you're just changing rates of pay and stuff. Cool. So I think a really important thing to have a look at next is what it looks like for the next section, which is the exporting of timesheets. So if we go to the export function, we've got all those timesheets that we've approved, and it will default to the group by employee, and we can select the bundles of timesheets on the left-hand side here. And as we select them, it's going to put a drop-down menu of everyone that's kind of being added there, and their hours and their pay and all that kind of stuff. But if we select group by pay rate, this is going to be really important for you to have a look at, because it's going to quote the award that you've selected, or if it's a salary, or if it's a pay rate by hour, it's going to quote the pay rate, but it's going to provide you with an export code. By default, the export code will always be the name of the pay rate, just so you have a very, very clear idea of where it came from. However, if your payroll provider requires you to change the export code to be either a different name, or in the case of MIB, for example, less than 31 characters, what you can do is you can just hit this edit button here, and then you can just get rid of any of the information in there that is redundant to the payroll platform. So for example, the dates, or the Monday to Friday, like ordinary is already indicative of it, and all that kind of stuff. Then you can hit save, and as you can see, it's resaved it to a shorter length. So when you export it to MYOB, it will accept it because it's less than 31 characters. That's just an example there, but you can edit the export codes to be of any support. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. You might have a payroll platform that has it set so it only receives this sleepover allowance when it's just SLP 1.5 or something like that. That might be the way that your payroll platform rationalizes this pay rate. So we provide you with the ability to edit these down, and once you save it, it saves it for good based on that pay rate. So what I mean by that is, let's say you change to the new version, the 2021 SHADS, it's going to repopulate the default export code. So just keep that in mind when you get to that kind of 1st of July time of the year. Okay, cancel there. So what other scenarios we might explore will be probably best suited for the Q&A section. But I think, you just give me a second, my computer's just catching up. There we go. Another thing that might be really helpful to look at would be some of the other situations where you need to recheck pay rates. So if we unapprove another pay rate here, it kind of unlocks it to allow you to edit heaps of other things as well. So it might be that you have an unautomated allowance that you need to add to it, but you can also unapprove the time as well, and then change things like the meal breaks and stuff like that. A lot of the time when you're going through and checking timesheets, you might find that it's less so concerning about the pay rate itself, but you might find that a break has been paid for or something like that. And a lot of people will automatically assume that it's got something to do with the award or the pay rates or something like that, but it's actually managed in the locations section. So determining you approving a timesheet and it automatically adding a meal break and determining whether or not it's paid or not. So for example, we've got 8 hours worked here for a 9:30 to 6, sorry. And it's got a meal break of 30 minutes there. If you need to change how that break behaves in interacting with the pay rates, it's not going to be done in the people or the schedule. It's going to be done in the locations. And per location, you'll be able to manage basically how the default breaks behave on a timesheet. So if we just give my computer a second, we'll find that when we go into the locations, we can select the location. Won't be too long. Okay. See, I just had to be patient. And we'll just edit this location here. And when we go to the timesheet section and we scroll down, you'll see that here you've got enable meal breaks. And so basically, if you have meal breaks as unpaid, when you record that, it'll take that off the hours worked against the hourly rates of pay or the award or whatever. So this is really good to know that something might be quite clear for you to like look in the pay rates and edit pay rates and things like that. But in this case, for how a timesheet is indexing hours total for the day, it's good to refer to the location settings for how breaks work. Another thing I might reiterate is just kind of like the general understanding. So like everyone here might be familiar with how awards work, but an award is quite an Australian kind of thing because it's something that Fair Work really write up. How on the back end we really rationalize this is like all of our awards that we have built into the awards library are employment terms, and employment terms are like a bundle of pay conditions. And a pay condition is, for example, an ordinary pay rate, like your Monday to Friday. That's a pay condition, and that pay condition is very basically set to an hourly pay. So if we hit edit there, and then go to employment details, this one here, that's a pay condition. And it's pretty basic. It's just going to be your default kind of pay rate there. But all these other pay conditions here are pretty complex because when you approve a timesheet, this employment term is only going to apply this multiplier to this pay rate only if during the timesheet approval process, lightning fast, it's checking and saying, okay, timesheet, are you a Saturday? Yes. Okay, well, I'm going to stop there and I'm going to apply 1.5 times multiplier to this pay rate and then give you that result. And then you've got even more complex pay conditions built into this kind of employment term, which is a Monday to Saturday rate before 6 a.m., but only the first 2 hours. It gets really complex. So that's why if you do the approve all function for, let's say, like 100 timesheets for a whole bunch of people, it might take a minute to actually go through with it. And that's because it's doing a lot of checking. And it's the goal that it's trying to achieve is getting you as close to compliance as possible. It's trying to help you be compliant as much as possible, as opposed to auditing every single person's timesheet to manually make them compliant. We're trying to bring the automation as much to that point as possible, so you only have to do some of the manual stuff like 1 or 2 allowances or something like that to achieve that kind of level of compliance. This is a big time saver, basically, is to use something like the awards library there and to have that send over into the payroll platform rather than doing it there. And basically the crux of that is we believe that doing the time and attendance, which it's a lot of reasons why people get deputy, is really good. But to do award interpretation, if you've kind of joined deputy or looking at deputy and you're looking at this document and you're like, yep, that's how we interpret the award, then it's going to be a massive time saver for you to rely on deputy to interpret the award as well as do the time and attendance, as opposed to just doing the time and attendance and then sending off an hour's timesheet to your payroll platform to then say, all right, figure it out. Because that can you create a margin for error at that point where you're relying on another software provider to basically try and make as accurate deductions as possible to a simple, like an hourly and time and date stamped timesheet. So if you do it all in the one system, then you're kind of playing to the system strengths. You're saying, hey, payroll provider, I'm going to rely on you to do the payroll run and the pay runs, do that. And then on deputy, I'm going to rely on you to do the time and attendance and award interpretation. And that can be a massive time saver. So what I might do now is we'll work through a few more hypotheticals and questions based on some of the Q&A questions. So let's land back on here. I'll open this up. And I'll just do another quick recap. So again, we did the pay rates, we did the hourly, we did the salary and the area-based pay. And then we went a little in depth with the award interpretation functionality, how that interacts with some of the payroll providers, what it looks like for the exporting process, and then did some basic timesheet troubleshooting as well. And then throughout that whole process, I was kind of showing you some of the tips and tricks that might be time saving, like the approval and unapproval. But what we'll do now is I'll just jump back to Felix and we'll run through the Q&A. But before then, again, we'll do the Q&A now. We'll basically have a recording of this sent out with a Q&A list of answers for those we don't get to now. And just so you know, we've got something to be announced in December for the next topic as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Sam. Thanks a lot. Cool. So let me first start with the following. We have gotten a lot of questions in, which is awesome. Now, a lot of those questions, given the topic, are very sort of account specific. So a lot of questions are very much, about the award that you're using, specific penalty rates, etc. Therefore, a lot of them we couldn't answer in the Q&A section. Please reach out to our support team with those because they can look in your account, and we want to give a general overview of the topic in this webinar. Cool. With that said, there's a few things that I highlighted, so a few things that I think might be beneficial for all of us. And the first thing is basically, and I know we've gone through this in pretty much every webinar we've done, and there have been quite a few questions that we can answer with this, and that is, I'm exporting my timesheets and I did an award rate change or I did a pay rate change and it doesn't come across to payroll. So maybe, Sam, if we can go back into the account and show, I know you've shown it just a few minutes ago, but I do want to highlight it because there's always a lot of questions that basically can be answered with this. So if you're changing someone's pay rate in Deputy, and it doesn't matter if it's an award rate or if you update someone's base hourly rate or do any other changes to someone's pay rate, the next thing you need to do before you export those timesheets is to unapprove and reapprove all of the timesheets for that employee for the current pay period. You do that, then you approve them all again. And again, please do that after you've done the change to the pay rate. And then you can export them and it would have grabbed the new changed rate. Perfect. Thank you. Then we had quite a few questions regarding awards that are not yet in the library. So the best way is, I think, Sam, you have the help article open for that. So we do have a help article specifically that shows you all the awards that are currently in the Deputy library. And you can always check in there if your award is in there. And that always gets updated all the time when our team, which is very busy, updating existing awards and adding new ones to it. So have a look through these and see if you can find yours. And if you don't find yours, you can actually submit a ticket to our support team and request that award to be added. And then they sort of go through how many people requested that, and then over time, we will add more and more awards to the Deputy Award Library. Perfect. Then if we jump back to the account, we had a question about leave time. We actually had quite a few questions regarding salaried staff members and leave timesheets. As mentioned in the webinar, timesheets for salaried staff members are actually not getting exported. And then there was a lot of questions, how about leave? Leave timesheets do get exported. So if someone is on a salary, their actual work timesheets, the ones that they clock in and out, they don't get exported, but leave does get exported. Which probably, do we have anyone in there with a salary, Sam?
We don't, but we'll show you how quickly it is to do it. So yeah, let's change myself to a salary.
Perfect. Thank you. And while you're doing that, actually, I can answer the next one basically without showing. So there was a few questions regarding the area of work, pay rate option. And then people were asking, how about if we pay different rates for weekdays, weekends, public holidays, etc.? So currently, if you choose area-based pay, you can only put in a base hourly rate. No rate for weekends or award rates or something like that. But our team is working on changing that, and we don't have an ETA yet when that will be in the product. But because it's a massive task to build that in, but it is being built. So keep an eye out for that. Cool. While I said that, so Sam just added the salary. If we now go into the export window, perfect. You'll see how Sam's timesheets. Whoop. Too quick. Is it frozen? Is it your internet, Sam?
No, I think I was doing it for me before. 1 sec.
Cool.
I think while we're doing this, a really good thing to note down is area-based pay doesn't work for the current awards at the moment, but yeah, it is being worked on. How we want it to behave, or how our customers want it to behave, is that in the same way that you select the award and then can select the areas that index the different awards, that would allow someone to switch from Gria to Higa or something like that. If it's a let's say it's a pub and they do bottle sales, and then you actually go work around the kitchen or something like that, that allows that kind of flexibility. At the moment, it only works for the hourly functionality, but yeah, should we have soon, hopefully, the award interpretation will interact with area pay by area, man, that would be awesome. But it is something that we're working on, so we're really excited to get that done for you all.
Cool. And while we're in there, there's actually two questions that also came up quite a bit. So one is, if what do you do if the award changes, if a penalty rate changes in the award, if there's an update to the award, but the base rate doesn't change? Mm-hmm. And I know we're jumping around now because that is still salary.
Yeah.
But there we go.
Yes, it locks it out. Ta-da! Salary is not exported. But yeah, what were you going to say, Felix? Sorry?
Cool. No, if we go back to people and we look at the award library again, there was a few questions. So one is, what are we going to do if the base hourly rate doesn't change, but the award gets updated? And the answer is, if you go to, say in this case, Amy earns $25 an hour, this is the current version of the award. But let's say if you're not on that, if you're on the 1st of July 2019 or something, what you got to do is just change the award at the top to the current version and then put in the same base hourly rate again. And that will change. Then only the multipliers will update them and still will keep the same base hourly rate that you had in there before.
Yeah, like one of the busiest times of the year for us and our support team is Fair Work Week, which is around July, and typically, depending on the nature of the change, will determine how easy or hard some of the processes are around changing pay rates. So, for example, let's just say that next year, 2021, Gria only has a marginal change to the base rate pay. So this increases at a percentage rate. But if that's an increase, then our customers only simply have to select the new pay rate, really, and then change it to $27.50. But if the nature of the change for the award, it has to do with the multiplier, then yes, it becomes very, very important to make sure that everyone's on top of changing the award, which will, you can keep the same rate of pay as the base, but you'll see this might change to 1.22 or 1.45 or something like that.
Correct. And then someone else asked as well, what does the 2020 stand for? So the 2020 is the actual, the latest version of it. please don't choose it, because that's what someone else wrote as well, for the year that someone started at your business. So if they started in 2018, please don't leave it at 2018. Actually, just update it to the 2020 version. If there is a newer version of the award in there, always make sure you change it to the newest one and not leave it on the one when, the employee actually started.
Yeah, this is quite specific to the version of the award. If you're trying to note down the tenure of the employee and when they started and stuff, that's stored in other parts like general and job info and stuff like that.
Correct. Perfect. Then if we go to the location settings and have a look at the notifications and integrations part, there was two things that came up quite a bit that I think we should touch on. One is what if someone is 16, or probably a better version, someone is 17 and has on their 18th birthday, does the rate change automatically? And the answer is no, it doesn't. But we have a notification in here that you can turn on. We only need to find it, right, Sam?
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a little further down where it says update junior pay rates.
That's it.
That's the one.
That's a few.
So there is a notification in there where which you can turn on. This is on a location basis. So if your account has multiple locations, and you have a lot of staff members that are working only at one location or only at a few locations out of all of them, please make sure that you turn this on for all locations if you want to.
But here's another time-saving tip or trick. When you activate the notification and then you modify the behavior of it. So again, we found it's update junior pay rate. And once this loads, you can actually, as you can see here, it'll give you the notification to change what from what and who to who. But then if you have a look down here, there's a button there that says turn it on for all locations. So you just hit yes. If you want that notification to behave the same way across all locations, that's how to do it. But as you can see here, especially in Australia, pay rates change year by year between the ages of 16 and 21. And then after that, it kind of stays the same. And then, you can change the rates of pay here. And it's pretty cool. And then you can just notify the managers. So the managers are the ones who go in and actually make these edits to the people profile. And once we hit save, there you go.
Cool. And then the other thing that was asked quite a bit in notifications integrations is the leave accrual. So with leave accrual, and that's always a bit of a tricky topic. So if you want to have leave accrual turned on for a specific location, we have a setting in here with, I think it's a little further down, Sam, actually. Yeah, it's a little further down, I think. There we go, accrue and deduct leave balance. So just be aware, if you turn this on, this will be turned on for the whole location. Or again, if you tick that box, turn on for all location, you will turn it on for all locations. What that means is if someone works a single shift even in this location, it will already accrue leave. So if you have a setup where, for example, you accrue rostered day off, if someone works over 38 hours or something like that, you might want to create a specific location for this leave accrual. So you keep your other locations that you use right now just as they are, and you create a separate location that you call, for example, RDO or time off in lieu or something like that. And then if someone is rostered on for their 38 hours in their normal locations, everything stays the same. And then if you want to roster them on for 4 hours or something, 4 hours extra that week, please roster them on in that location, and then it will accrue that leave type only in that location. That's the important part here. So if it's a setup like that, above 38 hours at accrues leave, please create a separate location for that if you want to use this. Right, Sam? Anything to add there? No.
No, that's, nailed it.
Perfect. Then what happens when award rate changes? We answered that as well. Do the base rates when an award change happens, do the base rates, do they get updated automatically? No, they don't. So you will actually have to update them as you've shown before. So you have to go into someone's profile and update them manually. Now you can do that in bulk. I saw that question as well. So you can update it in bulk. Just be aware that you're updating it in bulk per rate. So if you have 50 staff members on the same award, but they have 20 different rates, you will have to do that per rate. So if 10 of those have the same rate, you can do those 10 in bulk. Because if we would save this now, everyone that Sam just ticked will get that award with that rate.
Yeah, so it's really just like kind of you got to identify them. So typically you wouldn't do this. You would just look and go, okay, well, here's my part-timers, and they all have the same rate. And then I go bulk actions, and then I just set rates. And then I can set all these casuals to the new version, and they're all on the same pay rate, so sweet. That's what you can do. And that's how to do it. Again, just to reiterate, this will only ever do a maximum of 50 at a time. So if you have 51 employees and you do like all, and then you do bulk actions, it'll only do the 50 that you see there. So you need to go to the right and then find your last person to edit.
Perfect. A few more things that I'm just skipping through the Q&A again. So what is if you have an EBA? If you have an EBA, please reach out to our support because this is very account specific to your account. Please reach out to them and they can help you with that. Then there was a lot of questions regarding Xero that were all sort of in the way, will Xero be able to read all the awards and award rates and changes that are made in Deputy? The answer is yes. So if you choose to use our awards in Deputy and you make any changes to it, the important thing here is that there is a button when we export, which I think we're not connected to Xero right now, right, Sam? But maybe we can.
If it did, basically it will prompt you. It would
be awesome to show, yeah.
It will prompt me to replace the awards that are built in to Xero, and then you just hit yes.
Correct. So there's a little tick box underneath it. And the important part here is if you want to overwrite the Xero rates with the Deputy rates, please make sure that you tick that box. It's just in that window, basically underneath the Connect Xero, there's this tick box. That box has to be ticked. And the opposite, if you specifically don't want that, if you want to use the rates in Xero and you don't want to use the rates in Deputy, please make sure it is not ticked, because otherwise it will override it. Cool. And then I think what we should show again as well is manually adding allowances. So there was quite a few questions about that. So if we go into a timesheet,
approve, yeah,
and add maybe a laundry allowance to our favorite podcaster, Jordi.
I'll do an award person.
Perfect. Cool.
Yeah, and approve pay. And yeah, from this drop-down menu, we go like that. And let's say it's a first aid. We do that. We pop in the units, and then we can hit the plus symbol, and then we can go, okay, well, we definitely want to have the laundry allowance as well. And again, the units are based on what you put into the allowance field at the bottom of the, like beneath the multipliers. You've got all the allowance sections there, and then it's per dollars per unit that you want. So if we hit approve there, it hasn't calculated the pay of it just yet, but it's got the units in there. So when you get to the export, it'll calculate the values of it. Now, another good thing to note down is that you'll have these alert icons, these red icons here, and that's just to note that this is manually added. This is not part of the automation. So you overrid the timesheet itself, and so this is kind of like putting stamps on it. So like all this stuff is the automated approval stuff, and then this is the stuff manually added to the timesheet.
Cool, perfect. Surprisingly, I think there is quite a few questions regarding public holidays. So maybe if we could quickly jump into the schedule. First, show them how to put a public holiday in, and then there's a few questions regarding full-time staff members if they don't work on a public holiday, but they get paid their normal rate.
Yeah, I'll quickly go through both the scenarios, because like if the public holiday is coming up, if it hasn't happened yet, then sure, go to the schedule and find the day that is the public holiday, and you just click at the top of the screen, and then you just select public holiday. It'll note it down in red, and that will know that any shifts that occur on that day will invoke a public holiday rate, which will query the people profile, where based on the award, because the public holiday multiplier might be 2.21 or 2.28, it just depends on the award. It's not just going to have like a blanket public holiday rate. It's just like a flag. So when we go and approve a timesheet, it's going to try and capture that flag to apply the right rate. But if it's for the past, then what you actually want to do is you have to manually apply to the timesheet the public holiday rate. So we're going to unapprove the pay. If this is a public holiday, then instead of this version here of like this kind of shift, you need to just pick public holiday. I think it's just this one. And so if we reapprove it, it'll be at a higher rate of pay. And it's got PH, Christmas Day or Anzac Day. Awesome. So then when we go to the export of timesheets, that'll be a higher rate of pay when it groups by the pay rate. And what was the other scenario that you wanted me to do, Felix?
Correct. So the other scenario, and I do think there's someone as well asked for an RDO, so we can technically answer both of those. So if you want to set, it is a bit of a workaround. So if you want to set up a like if your full-time staff members get paid the ordinary rate on a public holiday for not working, we usually call that public holiday not worked. What we can do to kind of automate this for you is create a location that you call public holiday not worked, for example, or something like that, with an area in it called the same way. And then you can reach out to our support team. We can then take that specific location out of your public holidays, meaning if you attach a public holiday to a certain day, it will keep that particular location out of it. So if we go back to, you're in the Saturday, right? The 21st. Yeah. So if we scroll, let's say, to the bottom there would be a location that wouldn't be red in the background then. That location, I mean, we haven't set it up in here yet, but...
It's because I selected all locations when I set up the public holiday, so it attached that public holiday to all the locations. In that case, what you would do is you would just do location by location, applying the public holiday to the date, but you would leave out that last location called public holiday not worked.
Correct. And then in there, you would roster the staff members that are not working that day, but actually getting paid normally. So what would happen then is two things. First of all, on their timesheet afterwards and also on their schedule, it would say they're scheduled in the area public holiday not worked, which is really good for avoiding confusion. And the second thing is it will attach the ordinary rate to that timesheet when you're exporting them to payroll.
Yeah.
So it will do both of those things for you. But it is a bit of a workaround. Yeah. Now, with that said, we are kind of running out of time. There's still quite a few questions in here that we didn't answer. We will answer all of those, and then we'll send out a sheet with all of those questions answered, and also a recording of this whole webinar, send that out to you. And I think the last minute we're going to use to quickly put up the poll. And if you still have a minute, please let us know if you liked it. If it was, was it too complicated? Was it too easy, etc.? Please let us know. And with that, thank you very much. Have a nice rest of the day, and see you guys soon.
Thanks, everyone.